Hi there, my name is Katie Bartz from SewingScene.com, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Inkscape Extreme Beginning Tutorials. Today's tutorial deals with where to get free fonts and how to install them. I'd like to go ahead and start out with showing you where on your computer, and I'm working with a Windows-based computer here, but where on your computer fonts are stored. All right, so go ahead and open up your File Explorer icon. It's always in the lower left-hand corner of your screen on your taskbar. And when you open that up, you will be able to see the directories on your system. And we want to make sure to select Local Disk C. And when you click on that, you get the directories and file folders of your main directory on your computer. And Windows, the Windows directory, the Windows file folder is what we want to look at. So let's go ahead and double click on Windows, and you will then get all the files located in the Windows directory. There is one called Fonts. All right, so that is where all of your fonts are on your system. So when you're using your word processor goes to this directory to get all the fonts available to it. When Inkscape opens up, it goes to this particular directory to get a list of all the fonts that are available. So let's take a peek in here and see what we have. So we have a lot of different fonts listed in this directory. It looks like I have 246 items, and these are pretty much the default fonts that come with the different systems and programs that I have. If you start getting over, 300 or 400 fonts on your system is going to start lagging, because every time you open an application, it goes to this directory and has to, in memory, kind of load all of these fonts in memory for your application so that it can use it and list it in the application. So it's best, if you don't use a font, you can go ahead and select them and delete them. If it's a system font, it won't let you delete it, so you don't have to worry about that. All right, so let's find out how we get fonts on our system into this folder using the internet. There are areas on the internet where you can get free fonts, so let's take a look at that. So when you go to the internet, you can search on a couple of these different free fonts here, and one of them that I like to use regularly is Font Squirrel. When it comes up, it will show you some of the fonts that they're highlighting. It also shows you a list of different fonts that you can search on by category that you're looking for. I also like to use dafont.com, and I'll go ahead and put a link to these particular sites in the details section below, so you can go ahead and click on them and download them, or at least link to it later. All right, so let's take a peek at how we actually install a font on our system, and I'll go ahead and use the dafont.com website. Now each of these fonts, they have possible licenses with them or whatever. They're all usable for your own personal use. Some of them have limitations on using them on products that you would sell, etc. And you can buy a license to it. It's very minimal, and you can have it then forever. But let's take a look here. Let's look under the script category, and let's look under various. So I'm going to click on script, various, and as I scroll through here, let's see if there's anything that catches my eye. You know what? This Magnolia Sky font looks kind of fun. So all we need to do is select download. And when you select download, your system will either send it directly to your downloads file folder, but I have set my browser up to always prompt me where I want the information saved, because I like to keep my computer organized. So what I'm going to do is click on Save As, and then a file, our dialog box comes up, and on my system in my documents folder, all right, you all have a documents folder, I have created a folder called fonts. So I've gone to new folder, typed in the word fonts, and then when I double click on this, I've also created a folder called zipped, because all your files you'll see will come in a zipped format. So I am going to double click on that and open it, and now you can see all the different fonts that I've downloaded. And Magnolia Sky is not in here, so all I'm going to do is go ahead and select Save. All right, now let's go take a closer look at where that is located. So in my Documents folder, under Fonts, under Zipped, I now have a file called magnoliasky.zip. If you right-click on the file folder, you will either see Extract, or if you have a unzipping program such as WinZip, which is free to use, you can purchase it and use the sample version. I like to actually extract it and unzip that particular file folder in a folder called the name of the font itself. So I can go ahead and select this option, and what you will see is it will create a file folder here in just a second called Magnolia Sky. Then to keep this file folder organized, or this file organized, I will click and drag that and drop that on Magnolia Sky. So all of my fonts are organized in categories. Now why do I do this? Because I am in the habit of backing up my computer system regularly. And as you start working with embroidery files, cutting files, font files, you will want to back up your system on a regular basis. And there are, simple backup programs out there that help you do that. They will do it automatically or on demand. And you will have these files and font files on your system. So if your system ever crashes or whatever, you can reinstall the exact font and setup that you had before. So that's always a nice little tip to know. Magnolia Sky is here, so I'm going to double click on that, and when I open that, it's going to show me a picture of what the font will look like. OTF is open type font, and then Magnolia Sky TTF is a true type font. Here is that zip file that I copied in here, so I have a backup of it. And then your readme.rtf or txt files are information about the font and how you can use it and if there's any legalities that you need to be aware of. OTF and TTF, they're both fonts that work in the Windows system. OTF kind of started in the Mac environment. It is probably a more robust font. So if you're going to use a font for crafting, for your cutting machines, you need to scale very, very large. Whatever you want to use the OTF if it is available. If it's not available and they only provide a true type font, you are more than welcome to use that too. That will work just wonderful. True type is more for, typing in a word processor, creating documents, etc., but it can also scale very, very large. It's just that if you have an OTF available, I would encourage you to use the OTF file first versus a TTF. Now to install this font into the Windows directory, there's two ways of doing this. You can select that file, copy it, and paste it directly into that font folder under the Windows directory, or an easier way yet is to simply right-click on that file, and when you right-click on it, you have an option to install the font. So let's go ahead and click on Install, and very quickly it'll just spin there just for a second, and then it will actually be installed. And to verify that, let's pop back over to our fonts directory, and I'm going to go ahead and refresh this really quick by pressing my F5 key. And if I look under here under the M, they'll be in alphabetical order. You can see Magnolia Sky is now installed on my system. Now what that means is when I go over to Inkscape, let's go ahead and click on the text tool. And if I click on this drop down here, you'll see a list of all the fonts. And a lot of times it takes time to scroll through all your fonts here, so let me show you a shortcut. If you click your mouse and highlight, if there's any font that's listed here, just highlight it, and if you hit the first letter of that font name, if you know it's Magnolia that you like, then it will list all the M's in the font list. So that makes it really easy to pull up the fonts that you like. So I'll go ahead and select Magnolia Sky. We'll click in my document here, and I will type the word Dream. Again, if I hold the Control key on my keyboard and scroll my mouse, I will see that. Now you can see part of it is actually cut off. All right, and you will find that with some of the more artistic type fonts, but have no fear, because once you have the font on your screen and once you convert it to a path by going to the Path menu, selecting Object, all right, we have now converted to a vector design, because if I click on my Nodes tool, I can select that font and you will see all the nodes are available. Now you can manipulate that word however you want it, or font however you want it. You just can't now that since you've changed it to a path and you've made it ready to send to your embroidery program or your cutting program, and it has these nodes on it, you can't go back to this text tool. We talked about that in the last video. You can't go back to this text tool and change the word. So you want to make sure the word is just how you want it before you actually convert that to paths. All right, there are a couple other steps we will go through as we continue progressing through these tutorials that will help you make transferring your designs to your other applications easier as well. All right, so I think that pretty much covers it. We've shown you that you can actually bring in a font. We showed you a couple sites, and again, the links will be down below. Where to get some free fonts. Have fun searching. It's like you're going to have your own font stash before you know it, and creating some really fun stuff. So we showed you where they're located on your computer. We talked a little bit between the difference between an OTF and a TTF type font. We showed you how to install it, and then how it will show up in your font list in your application once you open your program. So please feel free to comment with any questions that you might have on this particular topic, and I thank you for joining me.